Welcome to Table Talk.
Sponsored
I am
by.
your host and sponsor, Dr. Joy Brown, CEO of 3E Consulting. I specialize in educating, equipping, and empowering people and organizations to achieve their personal and professional greatness through coaching, conversations, and workshops. I'm also a career coach at Functional Training Zone. And so you are in for a treat tonight at Table Talk, where we bring honest conversations with professionals from various industries to give you firsthand insight about their career journeys. And I'm super excited because we have a dynamic panel for you tonight on career transitions. So whether you're taking a new role, changing industries from either a layoff or an early retirement, transitions can be both exciting times but also overwhelming. And today, our goal is to unpack some strategies to making effective transitions, overcoming some of the fears of the unknown, laying out how you are able to leverage your transferable skills and how to cultivate a right mindset during these transitions. And so we have a fun-filled packed guest, and we're going to start with our introduction of our panelists. And I'll first start with Simone to introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Simone Pemberton. I am the founder of ProWorks Career Services and a certified coach, as well as a partner with FTZ. When with my business, I help clients figure out what they like to do, what they're good at, and then coming up with their goal and then piecing all of it together for a strategic career project plan. So that is what I do.
All right, welcome. All right, Shelby.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Shelby Hill. I am the founder of WorkNeeks nonprofit as well as Hillside Enterprises, and I have over 30 years of experience in the workforce development area with about 20 or 25 years focused on transitioning from a current location or current position into employment.
All right, well, let's get right into our conversation for tonight. So, our topic is career transitions. Now, y'all, we said that in Table Talk, we're going to have some authentic and real conversation. And there is truly a lot of career transitioning right now that we are all experiencing. So, tonight, we want to start off with our first kind of topic on, again, in this transitioning phase that we are in. Talk to us about these transferable skills. How do I take what I've always done for over 20 some years in one industry and how am I able to apply them to do something different? So, Simone, can you start us off with this conversation?
Absolutely. It's all about, I think, looking back on what you've already done, right? And you've done so many things. When I look back on my career, I've been in HR for 16 years. And as a federal employee, it's like, what can I do in the private sector? A ton of things. Do you have data analytical skills? Do you have, you know, process improvement skills? All of these things translate perfectly over to the private sector. You're just going to have to really kind of play with the position titles when you're searching. So when you're looking for these jobs, try to search for the actual skills that you have and that you can contribute instead of just a job title, because some of the job titles that you're looking for aren't going to really kind of give you the duties that you would like. So like chief of staff. Chief of staff, you can do, I mean, anything in a chief of staff role. Some of them are more strategic. Some of them are kind of like the backbone to the director of the organization. Some of them do a lot of transformation work, and some of them do more like executive assistant work. So you really, I think, going back, kind of looking at what you've done, what you're really good at, and then searching those skills will really kind of help going forward and find the jobs that really speak to you and your abilities. So
I don't know. I love that. And I like how you said start with those transferable skills. And I like how you gave a great example of what we think again, if you're in the federal government moving into the private sector, we know those federal government titles. But in the private sector, their titles are very different. And we have seen a lot of different changes within the federal government moving to more of a private sector life. But let's hone in more of those skills. So think about what you like to do. What are you naturally good at? Communication. Simone mentioned data. If you know you
Mhm.
want to work with data, guess what? When I go to my job search engines, I'm going to put in data. So all the jobs with the algorithms pull up data. I want to know about this. If you really want to work with people or animals or children, when we talk about those transferable skills, utilize that in some of your job searching and see what jobs will come up as well. And so that's great to look at those transferable skills. So that's like your communication, your problem solving, being detail oriented. Think about your transferable skills, but ask yourself, what am I good at? Because I think that's how you land kind of what your transferable skills are. Shelby, do you have anything else to add about the transferable skills?
I think what I would add is also make sure not only understanding what you're good at, but what you enjoy doing. Because
Mhm,
sometimes
mhm,
when you really enjoy what you're doing, it's easier for you to be able to transfer from one industry to another, from private industry into federal government and vice versa. But you really have to have a passion for what you're doing. Otherwise, it's just going to be transactional. And
mhm.
so I think it'll be easier to navigate the transition and throughout employment if you really have a passion for what it is you're doing and what you're going to be looking for.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Not only what are you good at, what do you enjoy doing? Yes. Someone told me a long time ago, if you do what you love, it's never a day of work. And so I have fostered that. All right, great. So one of the things we talked about this mindset, because we know that the mindset plays an important role in anything of a transition of being. I always say I'm navigating through life because that whoever coined the term life, and I'd be like, yes, life and it's happening. And so
Mhm.
as we navigate this journey called life, we need to figure out the mindset and how that plays an important role in how we are resilient and definitely in times of transition. Shelby, can you add to that, please?
Absolutely. One of the things is just to have a strong understanding that you're valuable. No matter what you're doing and what you experience, you bring value. If there is an unfortunate situation where you need to transition unexpectedly or unbeknownst to you that you needed to do that, you still have value. You still add value to your next phase. So having a mindset of positivity and knowing that there's a better place and a better opportunity in everything that happens really helps you to be more acceptable to change.
Mhm.
So if you just kind of get stuck in that same avenue, I only want to go down this career path, I only want to work in this type of industry, consider some other options. And then that's where those transferable skills come into play because maybe you were doing administrative work for 25 years, but if you switch where you're doing that work, then you can find yourself motivated and encouraged to continue to do what you're doing and you're enjoying it just in a different environment. I'd also add to the fact that it's okay to take a step down. It's okay to really think about the fact if I call it the check mark effect, where based on where you are, you may have to step down a little bit in order to rise up three times higher than you were before. So just determine how far down can you go? How much of a setback can you take? And then once you determine that, you can go out and market yourself for any type of job that you may be looking for, even if it's something that's a little less in income than you were where you were before. But as long as you know what that baseline is, then you'll always be able to be successful in your next step.
Oh no, I think that's great. I love it how you said starting with that you have value. And I always say that leadership is not about a title because you can lead at any level and you can lead in groups. But know that you have value. That is the key, that you have value, and that definitely ties to those transferable skills. So you can make a difference and add value in any organization or any position that you have. And that is so important. And that also, again, ties into what Simone said is those transferable skills. I know for me, like I love working with people, I love collaborating. So when I talk about my superpowers, because I believe I got superpowers, it's that collaboration. Oh, I love to collaborate with others and we brainstorm and we figure out synergies, and then we come up with a plan and execute. So I know that collaboration is one of my values. The way I connect with people, because I'm a relationship person. So I do great when I say I walk the halls, I talk to people, I know what's going on because I believe in connecting with people, but those relationships matter. And so that's the value that I bring. And then the communication, being able to connect and communicate with people, because you got to communicate to all people. And the roles that I've had, I had to utilize those values. So when we talk about those transferable skills and adding those values, it all lines up. And it all talks about who you are. Simone, you want to add some other strategies about the mindset, about being resilient during this time?
Look, as Shelby was talking, I was like, oh, yes, that's a good point. Oh, yes, I remember I had to do that. And so, like, as far as the values piece of it, so working with clients that I have and like helping them craft their new resumes, this always happens, right? People forget what they've done over the
Mm,
many years that they've been working, right? And so during my consultations, like we go through, hey, what are the things you're most proud of? What are your big
mhm,
accomplishments? What are the projects that you've done? What are the initiatives that you've been in charge of, et cetera, right? And they run through it and they talk and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I did good things. I
mhm,
remember doing X, Y, and Z." And I know it nobody likes updating their resume. I get it, but it was an odd exercise for my clients, and they're just like, you made me feel a lot better. Like you really helped me remember what value I bring, because it's so easy when you get laid off, you're like, oh, I wasn't valuable to the organization. Absolutely not true.
right.
Had nothing to do with you, or us as people. Like it was just a restructuring or whatever it is for the
Mhm.
organization. And so it's kind of like, I mean, you have to update your resume. So it's a kind of a nice benefit that comes out of it. You're reminded of all the things that you've contributed positively to the organization you've been with, and the things you can continue to contribute, going forward. And, you're just, if you remember these things, then I feel like you're a lot more confident when you go out searching for your next role, right? Because you have things to talk about, one, but also like it's in our presence, it's in our aura and everything when we sit in front of people in interviews. So the more confident we feel, the better the interview is going to go. So that was something that stuck out to me as Shelby was talking.
Mhm.
And then the other thing was, Shelby, you made such a good point about, sometimes you have to take a step back. So whether it is a step back in a role, or
Mhm.
sometimes it's a step back in pay, or a combination of both. Like I remember having to do that in my career when I needed to get back into HR, and I took a like $15,000 pay cut,
Mhm.
and it was worth it because I got back in. I was able to move up quickly.
Mhm.
I forgot all about, that time where I had to take that big pay cut, until we started talking right now.
Mhm.
And, you know, unfortunately, sometimes we have to do these things, and it's not we're not failing, because life isn't linear. It's who I don't know who I hear it all the time, and I'm sure it came from somebody that I should know, but it's a setback to
Give
set
you a
you up.
setup.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So I definitely think these roles, especially if you're trying to pivot into something new, right? You
Mm.
have 75% of the experience, maybe 80, not all of it. You're using your transferable skills. You know, don't be afraid to kind of take a step back into a slightly more junior role. Maybe you were a manager. Go back and being a technical SME, and don't worry about leading a team. Worry about getting your foot in the door and then working the way up. So I loved all of that, and things were pinging off in my head.
And
No,
one of
I
the
love
things
that.
is
And
that,
we talk about mindset. We talked about it. Yeah, sometimes you have to, the other P word, pivot,
pivot.
right? We got to
Mhm.
pivot sometimes, even in our
Yeah.
career, and that step down or that redirection or that other position that you didn't think that wanted to take, but you saw it as a great opportunity to do something else. It was different. It kind of stretched you, but all of that is, again, that's your story. And we talked about, your resume, how I didn't remember. And so I love it how you add value because sometimes you forget what you do and
Mhm.
you've done all this great work and you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? But that adds your value. And I always say that everybody has a brand. And so just like we know, like the M, we see the three arches, we know that's M&M. I mean, that's M&M's and that's McDonald's. Everybody has a brand. But I do believe each person has their own professional brand. And your
Absolutely.
brand starts with your resume by us looking at what you've accomplished on your resume. Because remember, your resume is everything that you've already done. I'm not asking you nothing on your resume that you've not already done. So
Mhm.
that's the first thing. It's stuff that you've already done. You've already did it. So that's a pat on the back already. It's just helping you write it as a way that we articulating that confidence, that transferable skills, why I want to pick you of all the candidates. And so working with the coach definitely helps you do all of that and to remind you of all the great value that you have. And then articulate it. And that's what, again, makes you a stronger person or articulate person when you confidence on your interviews. The other thing we talked about is the importance of networking because we do believe that in anything I heard, it's not what you know, it's what who you know. And so
Mhm.
yes, and even in these times of career transition, but not only that, think about it, in an organization, even if you work by yourself, I can't do my job by myself. I have
Mhm.
to work with others. I have to work within a team.
Mhm.
I can do this part, but I need somebody else to do their part. So you're constantly working with others. And so those connections and the power of network. So we're going to talk about there is power in network. So who's in your network? So for our listening audience, think about who is in your network. Again, it could be your family, it could be your friends, your community organization. If you're in a sorority or a fraternity, it's the people that are in your network. Not only the people in your network, it was the people that I know in their network that I don't even know. It's almost like, your Facebook friends or your Instagram friends. You become friends of their friends. And it's like that. And so there's power in networking. And some of the key things that even in this transition, some of the things you want to be doing now is making sure that you're reaching out. There
Mhm.
is definitely power in social media. There's a lot of opportunities that's on social media, a lot of connections now with job hires and even job leads that is in the power of your cell phone. So we want to make sure you are plugged in into your network, those social media outlets, that you're getting those feeds and you're looking at those organizations that you may want to be a part of. Get involved, right? It's a great time now when your career transition, figure out, oh, maybe I want to join an organization. Maybe I want to volunteer.
Mhm.
Maybe I want to possibly network. And so you get to go to places, meet new people, and that also opens up your network of opportunities. Again, so make sure that you're building those connections. And does anybody have a story about the power of just networking and how that's so vital in any career transition?
I uh I would also add to that, in addition to understanding the power of networking, is who knows you.
Mm.
So one of the things you want to remember is when you're at dinner, you're at homecoming, you're just in the grocery store and you're meeting someone, it's fine that you pass a business card. But you want to have the kind of impact where someone's going to remember meeting you and they're going to
Mhm.
remember the story you told and they're going to remember the handshake. They're going to remember, oh, I remember they used to do this type of work. And then they'll be able to reach out to you as well. So I would even give them the opportunity to have some reverse networking where people are thinking about meeting you and whether or not you would be a good candidate for a position. And then they're reaching out to you. So I would include the opportunity to make sure you expand and your web so that if you're out there researching who to work for,
Mhm.
try to research who's going to call you for a job. Try to research who you're going to connect with in those same entities you spoke about, fraternities and
Mhm.
sororities, other organizations that you're with. Make sure that you're going out and you're present and that you're leaving a lasting impression with a conversation, a handshake, or just being present in the room. So I'd also add, make sure that people know who you are.
I love that. I love that. Simone?
Yes, so y'all probably saw me because again, Shelby,
So your
I was like,
comment.
there you go. I
Yes.
think because Shelby, you said, oh gosh, I have to remember. You said it's about who knows you,
Mhm.
right? And so I do have a story where using my network helped me get a new job.
Mhm.
And because I'm gonna be honest, I am not good at the traditional sense of networking. I'm an introvert, so I don't go into just the rooms of strangers and, get all the good conversations going and tell people all about myself. I'm more of a like reserved kind of sit back and then I gradually ease
Mhm.
into, who has the vibes with me and stuff like that. So, but I do a good job at over time building genuine connections with people
Mhm.
and maintaining those connections. And I do a good work. Like I'm a high performer at my job. And so that part right there, just being a high performer, whether you're trying to make an impression or not, goes a long way. Because I remember this is several years ago, and I saw a layoff coming, and then I was on the list of potential layoffs because I was newer to the organization. And, updated my resume. I was applying to jobs, all of that. But I also sent out my updated resume to some old colleagues I had worked with. And they sent out my resume to a bunch of different people they knew because, we had moved up in rank and stuff like that. It landed in the lap of a few hiring managers and one in particular. remembered me from a leadership development
Mm.
program that I did when I previously worked there. And I didn't know she was impressed by me, but she was, when I left, she was just like, I would have hired her. And
Great.
so
See?
she reached out and was like, oh my gosh, are you interested in this opportunity? And I was. And I was like, it was something different than what I had done before, but it was, I like learning new things. It was a new challenge. I was like, great. Went through the interview process, got the job. And that was just kind of me using my network, right? Instead
Mhm.
of just I can't do the extroverted way. It takes too much out of me, right? But like just knowing some people, because I didn't know this hiring manager,
Mhm.
but people could vouch for me, and she had seen
Absolutely.
me in action before. So I think that's just a really great way to, you
Mm-hmm.
know, potentially your resume lands in the lap or on the desk
Mhm.
of the right person. And, maybe the job comes quick, maybe it comes months later. You never know. So I think using those people, spark something on LinkedIn with some folks that you haven't, talked to in a while.
Talked in a while,
Oh,
yeah. And I've experienced the same thing, even though I did not have as much experience or I was younger or what have you, but I was able to survive a couple things that we've gone through in the past in the hospitality industry, 9/11, the recession, all kinds of things. But although I saw layoffs coming as well,
mhm.
and I was a little bit concerned because, again, I was the newest kid on the block and I had not had the length of experience some of my colleagues. And I ended up with survivor's remorse because I was not laid off. But
Hmm.
many people, but maybe and my boss had to explain to me, but you were the best person for the job.
Mhm.
So it's all about making that impression and who remembers you and the quality of, like you said, high performers. We go out there and we strive to be the best and we try to make a lasting impression. So although your qualifications may be different, put your best foot forward and just step out there and make sure that people remember the work that you've done and the impression that you've left on them. So I think that's really huge, especially as introverts. I too, we could take Dr. Joy with us when we have to go places.
I know.
Just let her do all the talking. But yeah, it takes a lot of energy
Mhm.
to go out and
Mhm.
do that. So you really have to try really hard to knock it out of the park when you have the opportunity. Most
Right.
certainly.
And I think those are great. One of the things this, one of my coaches told me this, and I always remember it. She says, someone's always watching.
Hmm.
Somebody's
Yes.
all so even though that you may not think no one's watching you,
That's right.
someone is always watching
Mhm.
you. And it's those moments when you don't think like, oh, so and so doesn't know my name. Yeah, they do.
Mhm.
And it comes back, but they're watching you. So I always say it matters how you show up. It matters what we talk about your presence. Because I said when I first started within, the federal government, I started as an intern,
Mhm.
intern. Hey, I needed a job. Okay. But
Mhm.
I had strong work ethics. And this was back in the day when I think at OPM, and I'm dating myself, but this is when you had to come and take that clerical test. And
Oh,
y'all
yes.
remember that clerical test? We used to
Yes,
come
yes,
down
indeed.
1900 East Street.
Yes,
People would line around
yes,
the building to
yes,
take that clerical test. And
ma'am.
so as an intern, they were notices, y'all. I had to fold the notices and put them in the envelopes and mail them out. Back in the day, we had mailings. Yes, we used to mail. But I did that with a smile. I would be
Yes.
folding and mailing it with a smile. But little did I know, me folding with a smile and I'm finishing small, smiling and folding, that would land me to where I am today. So it matters how you show because I didn't know they was watching me. Okay, I'm an intern like everybody else, but it
Mhm.
was something about me and my presence. And so when I finished that, I was, oh, do you have something else for me to do? But they were watching me. They're watching my effort, watching my customer service, my eagerness, and I was like a sponge when we talk about I want to learn. I'm still like that today. I want to be again. I want to soak up knowledge. I want to learn, especially when you're new to the organization. I'm trying to figure out who's who, and
Mhm.
that's another thing. Figure out the who's who. Who are, in a meeting, figure out like who are the movers and shakers, how do they command presence. Presence is just what they say, it's sometimes what they don't say, and how, so again, watching those dynamics, but learning all of that. So it definitely matters how you show up, it matters on that presence. But what if I was that intern who was on my cell phone, right?
Sure. How about
Do you
that?
think they would have asked me on my college break, Joy, would you come back? No, they would have been like, thank you so much for your summer work, thank you, bye bye.
Mhm. Yeah.
But they asked me to
Yep.
come back when I was at the University of Maryland. Come back on your college break, the winter break. Sure. I'll come back, work a little, a couple of 4 weeks before I go back. And they were like, are you interested in working and going to school? Sure. And I did that.
Yep.
The whole time I was in University of Maryland, I would go to Maryland and work at OPM. Did it 4 years. And then when I graduated, I automatically had a job and I progressed in my career. So when we talk about it matters how you show up and adding value, and when I look back again over my career from
Mhm.
that internship program, so I definitely am passionate about the internship program. I'm passionate about speaking to the students because you never know, and that's in any life, in any job, you never know who's watching.
Yep.
And you never know where that next opportunity is coming. So it is definitely important that, there's some networking, there's some reaching out to connections that you add value. And even in this career transition, you got to remember that. You got to encourage yourself that you add value. You're important. You have skill sets. And we're just trying to give you some strategy to help you navigate, these strategies and everything.
Mhm.
So I think we got a couple of questions for some of our listening audience. So we definitely want to address some of the questions that we received. And so here was the first question that we received. Well, I was laid off from my organization, which I was employed with for many, many years. Where do I start in regards to transferring and going back on the job market? So we get it. You've been working, you've had great value, you knew everything. Now you got laid off. Now you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But we want to say again some of the stuff that we've already talked about. You what? Have value. First
Hmm.
thing, you have value. And so as Simone said, okay, now it's time to we got to update our resume. So we do know in the private sector, because I do work with clients as well, the private sector has always had the two-page resume, and in the federal government, there's always been this, we tell our story, we look at experience, paid and non-paid experience, but due to some recent changes, we are going to more private sector like resume, 2 pages. It's
Mhm.
effective immediately on USA Jobs. So if you go on USA
Absolutely.
Jobs,
Yes,
it's
it
two
is.
pages. And
Mm-hmm.
so now we now need to figure out how we're going to take all of our 20 plus, 10 plus, 15-year plus experience and create it in these 2 pages. And some of the key things that Simone talked about, we want to look at the duties, but we don't want you to just throw your duties on your resume. No, no. We need accomplishments. We need impact. So making sure that you're looking at how you add value. If you oversee a budget, don't just say I oversee a budget. Well, no, I oversee a budget of over $50 million.
That's right.
Right. So
Mhm.
you want to quantify that.
Hmm.
So if you were able to do a best practice or streamline processes or reduce or increase our followers by 50K followers, developing social media campaigns, and what did it result to? That's where you want to write your resume. So in these 2 pages, because it's only in two, it's got to be concise, but it's got to
Hmm.
be impactful. And remember, you add value. So now what's to go back is, why did I do that? Did you author a strategic plan? Were you a part of a work group that led to a department-wide strategy? Add the value. So
Hmm.
that needs to come across again in your resume. Think about your LinkedIn profile. This is the time now to update our LinkedIn profile and our social media presence, because what? People are watching now. And again, you can definitely reach out to some employers, and different employers are even looking at you on these social media networks and sites. So we definitely want to make sure that you're doing that. Simone, do you have anything else to add to that one?
Just to piggyback on the LinkedIn piece of it,
Mhm.
again, a great way to kind of reconnect with your network, right? And so if you have those people, the old colleagues, old supervisors, old mentors that can vouch for you, I love, getting a few, you don't have to have a lot, but like a few kind of recommendations on LinkedIn that you push the button, ask for recommendation, it gives you a little script already that'll send out a request to whoever you're sending it to. I typically like to email or text the folks just to let them
Mhm.
know it's coming their way and ask them personally. But I think they serve as kind of like a pre-background, not a
Mhm.
pre-background, pre-reference check, right? Because if you have some recommendations on there for old supervisors, they're being other companies can be like, oh, great. They've already got some information on here. People can vouch for them because people don't want to put their neck out there if they don't have to, right?
Right.
Especially on such a widely known, widely seen platform. So I recommend getting a few of those, especially right now.
Mhm.
I think it's really going to help kind of bring you some value, show your value,
Show
right?
your value.
So
That's
yeah,
that value proposition. I love that idea about reaching out to those again and think about it. Now, your recommendations doesn't have to always be from your supervisor. It could
right.
be from colleagues. And again, it could be from organization that you volunteer in. It
Mhm.
could be from if you are on a ministry at your church and you've organized the food drive. Again, it's a recommendation, your professional recommendation of somebody that has worked with you on something and there was some result.
Right.
And so think of it like that. And so again, when we talk about who's in your network, that's be a whole list of people that you can say,
Mhm.
hey, would you mind being my reference? I'll be your reference, you be mine. Hello, we're gonna work our network. But that is a great thing. And I love it how you said, and you could easily do that. And make sure that people know. That's enough. I'm so glad you talked about make sure your references know you put them on for references. So
Yeah,
for people that you have a honest relationship with, let's go give a good reference for you and that can speak to your value. I think that's so important. Like, who? I told you, authentic conversations on table talk.
absolutely.
Simone, do we have another question?
We do, we do. Let's see. Okay, so I love this question.
Mhm.
Should I take a contract or part-time work position if I can't find a job in my field right away? I have thoughts, but anybody want to chime in before I give my thoughts?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I'm saying absolutely. I think yes. I
Absolutely.
would say yes. Consider part-time, consider contract work, freelance, temp
Freelance.
agencies, all of that, the above.
Hmm.
And I think because it helps you to close the gap,
Hmm.
helps you to make the gap in your resume
Yes.
a little bit smaller. So I think employers would rather see that you are working,
Hmm.
and you can explain. That's a reason for me to interview you for you to explain to me what those changes were in those times that you had some gaps.
Hmm.
But you want to make sure that the part of your resume that I do see is relative to the job I'm hiring for. So I'll just go out there and look at my job description and put the words in your resume that I have in my job description. But I definitely think it's important to just kind of keep working and stay employed. And it also contributes to you staying motivated.
Yes.
That
Oh.
we know what happens to idle minds, right?
Hmm.
So we want to continue to be out there and be active. And you never know in that part-time job, you don't know who's going to see you. You don't know
Hmm.
who else is working there that knows someone else and doing the networking that we just talked about. And that could land you the job. So you think about the part-time job being a downfall at the bottom of the check mark, but you may run across the person that's going to take you up quite a bit higher on that
Hmm.
job. So I would definitely say absolutely, find employment, in an area that you enjoy, of course, but there's no harm in taking contract or part-time work.
I agree. I definitely agree. I love all of that. And I think an additional thing is, we talk about strategy a lot,
Hmm.
right? And when we are in a mode of crisis and we're having to be reactive. And so, we're throwing out, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and we're applying for a whole bunch of different jobs that we know we could do, but maybe not framing ourselves well for that. And I feel like a contract job, what if it's a few months or some freelance, that gives us, no, it's not our full-time income that we had before, but it gives us some sort of income
Hmm.
and keeps us, engaged with our skills like you were talking about, Shelby. And so when we have that, I feel like we have a little bit more breathing room, right? And so then we can allow ourselves to be more strategic in our actual search for the full-time job.
Mhm.
Um, because we have to do that strategically. But if we're frantic about it, because of course, I mean, we're going to be frantic. We have families, we have bills, we have mortgages, things like that. So these short term or maybe not full-time jobs,
Hmm.
they provide some support for sure. So,
Right. And I want to thank you so much. These are great strategies. One of the things, like you said, that's why the power of social media, and just being plugged in because people have posted. I know during this time, I have seen a lot of resources from Maryland to Virginia to DC that they are offering
mhm,
just with jobs, just about taking care of the community. And so we need to make sure that you are plugged in. So you have to, make sure that you are tapped into those networks, making sure that you are aware of all those resources out there and apply to them. And one thing that Shelby talked about, because she said again, when we talk about success, we know that the resume is in 2 pages, the tailoring. The tailoring to these
Mhm.
jobs now is key. And we've talked about that even for the federal government. Like make sure that your job, your resume is always tailored to the job and looking at the specialized experience. All that's important, but it's going to be more important now in 2 pages. And so when
Absolutely.
we look at those keywords, making sure, but not only making sure that you match those keywords, but again, those marketable skills, those transferable skills, those accomplishments, what you have already done. I keep saying it again. Your
Yeah.
resume, it's not like you've never done this. No, it's stuff that I've already done. And then on your interview, you just got to tell me about what you've already done, which is on your resume. So that
Mhm.
is the key that we want you to remember in terms of being able to have your transferable skills, being able to market all of those strategies to help you navigate these career transitions. The other question we received is, some jobs want us to have all these certifications, and I know when I work with clients, sometimes they be like, I don't have them. And
Mhm.
so should I even apply? So we say yes, you should apply. Look for those requirements, but also there are other things on the application, even things that you can do to get those certifications. And so I always say I'm a lifelong learner. And so there's a lot of organization, there's a lot of companies that gave low or discounted, certifications.
Mhm.
Maybe during this time, we want to, and we talk about transferable skills. Maybe I want to put another certification under my belt. But
Mhm.
we need to research them.
Yep.
Coursera is a great, I think that's Coursera is a great website that offers a lot of training opportunities at a low cost. I know
Mhm.
we got LinkedIn, but did y'all know there's a whole thing called LinkedIn Learning?
Mhm.
Whole
Mhm.
platform on just training and development. And so we just want to make sure that you are staying again, looking at making sure that you are enhancing your marketability and making sure that you add value, but staying abreast of what's new. We know that the AI is new and popping, right? It's just
Yeah.
new. It is trying to make its way into the
Is.
federal government. I knew about AI outside doing coaching work in the work I do within my business. And so I was already using it before it even got introduced into the federal government. Now I have an opportunity to say, oh, this is how I've used it and be a part of the testing that they're working on now within the federal government. But so it's again staying abreast of what's the new changes. And we know that technology is one of the things that's always evolving, but staying in tune to those and leveraging that, especially now, makes you what transferable and makes you have marketable skills as well. Anybody else want to speak to some of the certifications and things of that nature?
Yeah, this I love the topic of upskilling and reskilling because I swear I tell all my clients, they're like, what should I be doing? I'm like, upskill,
Mm-hmm.
reskill. So, like upskill is like learning new skills that are going to be applicable to your current role, your current job, right? Your current career. But reskilling is learning all those new skills that you need if you would like to do a hard kind of pivot into a different field. And to piggyback on what you're talking about, Dr. Joy, as far as like platforms, I know there's edX as well. And I think they have a lot of professional certification courses, programs on there through some universities. Skillshare is another one, and I like this, not that I'm creative, but I love that it is focused on professionals that have fields in the creative world. So like marketing, communications, things like that. So that's just a very specific platform for them. And then Udemy, I don't know if y'all have heard of that, but Udemy is another one. And they have a lot of technical and business skills courses for very cheap, like very affordable because money is tight right now. But they have like monthly memberships for like $25, something like that, like very, very affordable. So I definitely, there's options out there for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what you're going through. But another thing and why it's so important to upskill. I had a client and she took a break, a planned break to raise her children and get them in school. And so then she started interviewing again and she had some interviews, but she got stuck on a question where they were like, well, what have you been doing with your time?
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody's receptive to the I took time for myself and my family,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Right. And so I told her, I was like, listen, do these courses. I was like, try to get a certification, another
Mm-hmm.
certification if you need to. Stay on top of your, she's a project manager, but for like events planning. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've sent her some links to some stuff specifically for event planners. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, stay on top of your technology, your software that you have to use, all the skills so that when you come into the interview, you can speak to, hey, I've been staying on top of the skills that I need to do my job. It's not going to be a huge learning curve when you bring
Right.
me back on, right? I can jump right back in. So I think That is always a great method. And then what I also have done for clients is because I've been working with a lot of HR professionals and they started like SHRM
Hmm.
certifications, PMP.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of IT ones that all the IT folks
Mm-hmm.
know, but you can start those, put them at the bottom of your resume under
Hmm.
certifications, and put in progress. And that you haven't finished it, but it's showing that you are working towards that. And I think hiring managers appreciate the initiative, right? So that's just a little tactic I like to use for
Oh
my
no, I
clients
love that.
working.
And also Google also offers great
Oh, a
career
whole bunch of
certificates
stuff.
as well.
Yep.
Oh yes, because they're staying abreast. And so we have provided, and I hope everybody's taking some copious notes, but if not, you can play it back and get
Yeah.
your piece of paper because we have dropped some great strategies. And so as we wrap up, we want to leave you again with one piece of advice or insight to help anyone navigate and finesse these career transitions. And I'll start with Simone and then Shelby, then I'll end it with mine.
One piece. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
I
Man.
know.
Um, you know, I can talk all day about resumes and upskilling and stuff like that, but like going through transitions, especially ones that kind of are forced upon you, like we were talking earlier, and Shelby, you said this, and I love it, or Dr. Joy, is one of y'all that said this, and it was like disconnecting from some things
Oh,
that
yeah.
are going to disrupt your peace,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
And so I've disconnected from the news. I like to just do what I can, take my walks with my dog, do
Mhm.
some self-care things.
Mhm.
So I really feel like in order for us to be able to strategize and focus on the professional goals, we need that inner peace some
Mhm.
way, somehow right now. So disconnect from things if you need to.
Mhm.
That's a great advice.
And I would add show up every day.
Mhm.
And if you don't have a job, show up for the world every day. And the same things that Simone was talking about, whether it's showing up and going to a job fair, showing up and going to a concert, or showing up and walking in the park, just make sure that every day you get up and you show up for the world, because the more time that you spend in a hole or self set, criticizing yourself about what has happened, it's not really going to help you in the long run. So always show up for whatever you're going to do and make goals for every single day. So if tomorrow your goal is to take a look at your resume, or for you to have a mock interview, or you to meet a new business professional that can help mentor you or coach you, do that have a goal every single day. And it may only be a couple hours of your day, but make sure that you show up for it every day. And then in the end, you'll reap the benefits from it. So stay motivated. And again, like Simone said, just keep your mind and your body and your emotional self strong. And I think that you'll find that at the end of all of that, you'll come out on top.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna bring all that home because that's all. So I'm a quoter. So I found a quote, and this is a quote by Steve Chase, and he says, "The pace of change and the threat of disruption creates tremendous opportunity." So
Wow.
even though that again, this year has been one in the books, and it's been
Mhm.
a lot of change and transition. But
Mhm.
even in those spaces, there's opportunity. And so some of the stuff that we've talked about is showing up, remembering your value, remembering your worth, remembering the power of your network, remember everything that you've already done and what you've been through is a story and your brand that any organization should be great and would offer to want to hire you. But you got to remember that. And even in these times of, I don't know where that power of that network, the connections, those relationships with others. So even though you may feel you're by yourself, you're not. You got a whole network that's here to uplift you. That's here to go and say, hey, I'm just checking on you today. I've had so many people check on me in this whole year that I think I've ever had in my life. Because again, there's a lot going on. So they just, we got to check on each other because we're going to get through whatever we're going to get through together in the power of that network. But again, seize those opportunities. As Shelby said, show up. Show up each and every day. And showing up is getting up, being active by doing something. And Simone talked about again, turning off. My peace is priceless. So, yes, we're going to turn off some
Yes.
stuff because my mental space and my peace And my mindset is key. And I need to be locked in and focused on what I need to do next in strategy. And so we appreciate you all joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed this tonight's version of Table Talk. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. And if you have a question or topic for us, please send it to info@functionaltrainingzone.net if you have a question or topic for us. And again, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you joining us next time.